How's it going, everybody? This is Dominic Minchella. I am the Kansas City Chiefs co-beat writer for On SI and the host of the Kansas City Chiefs Insider Podcast, joining you a day later than what we typically do on the podcast. I apologize, some family matters came up, but we've got some review to get over as the Kansas City Chiefs looked lost. Man, they looked like a lost football team. And, with all the good luck that they had last year, you would think that it would have to come back in some way, shape, or form and bite them in the butt this year. But man, these guys are taking hit after hit after hit. And at this point, I don't even know if it's gotten funny. It's just kind of, it puts into perspective how short your time is at the top of the mountain, because people think of recency bias. So yes, you can hold on to the fact that this franchise has been a juggernaut in the AFC as well as in the AFC West division. But for the remainder of the rest of the season and into the offseason until the start of next season, they're going to be known as, losers this year. The narrative is going to be heightened for the remainder of from here until 2026, really. But today we're going to be breaking down Chris Oladokun. And, he stepped in for Gardner Minshew, who went down with a similar injury to Patrick Mahomes. While it wasn't an ACL tear as originally thought, Gardner Minshew has been placed on the injured reserve and will miss the remainder of the 2025 season, meaning that Oladokun will be your starting quarterback for the remaining 2 games so long as things go well. But the question is that I have is, does Oladokun truly have a future with the Kansas City Chiefs for the future, really? So as we know, he was a 7th round draft pick in 2022 by the Steelers, but he has only played with the Kansas City Chiefs. And before yesterday, or rather, Sunday as the time of this podcast recording, but in week 16, he had not ever had thrown a pass. And it was kind of cool to see, a guy who's kind of getting his feet wet. And while it's not the result or the outcome that really Kansas City Chiefs fans would have wanted, it's the cards that they have been dealt. In the game that he played, he had 11 completions and 16 attempts with a completion rate of 68.8, 111 passing yards, averaging 6.9 per completion, longest of 31 yards, and he got sacked 4 times. That's another thing. Whoever is the quarterback, at least in the depth perception, because we all know Patrick Mahomes, when he comes back, he is likely to be, not even likely. He's a solid chance, and he will be the quarterback for the remaining future of this franchise. But Oladokun, I think that when you're looking at him compared to Gardner Minshew, he's 28 years old. He'll be turning 29. Whereas Gardner Minshew, while he's got that veteran presence to him and he kind of understands better on how things go, he is just a year older. So it does beg the question, how do the Kansas City Chiefs want to go about their backup quarterback for the future? I personally think that there is no fault in having a player like Gardner Minshew as the backup quarterback. He does have experience. He's not going to give you flashy numbers. In fact, in the 4 games that he played with Kansas City this year, he had 6 completions and 13 attempts for 37 passing yards, and he ran the football for 2 yards and 6 carries. So, his progression is declining, but I still believe that a veteran presence is better for the Chiefs quarterback room, especially because in this kind of situation, as I touched on this in an article, Patrick Mahomes is down, Gardner Minshew's down, Oladokun, he's still fairly new, and I don't necessarily think that he imposes fear into defenses on the opposite side, so much so that I think a lot of credibility gets taken away from the Kansas City Chiefs when he's out there. But not to say that he's a bad quarterback. He's here in the NFL for a reason, but he's primarily slotted as a guy who's going to be a backup. Gardner Minshew has made himself a career pretty well, and after being a 6th-round pick, he's played since 2019 for several different franchises. But still, I think that when you're evaluating how things should look for the future and who's behind Patrick Mahomes, there's a case to be had for each. Gardner Minshew is going to cost you a little bit more because he's got more experience, and Kansas City Chiefs are already dealing with a lot of money issues going forward. So, but from the way that he's played this season, perhaps that they could get him back on a cheaper contract. But I think that ultimately it's better to have Gardner Minshew as the future. You can have both. Don't get me wrong. I'm talking about who could be the QB2 for the 2026 season. Don't get me wrong. Not saying that whoever gets chosen or whoever is considered the other one is completely out of the running. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is QB1 is Patrick Mahomes. Who's going to be your QB2? Is it a guy like Chris Oladokun or is it a guy like Gardner Minshew? Me personally, if there was a choice, I'm saying that Gardner Minshew is the better option because he has the veteran presence. And while he doesn't invoke as much panic and a defensive mind as a guy compared to Patrick Mahomes, a 2-time MVP in Mahomes, a guy who has led the Kansas City Chiefs to 3 Super Bowls, he still has that starter experience. And I think that if anything, if you're going to look at things in that regard, Gardner Minshew is still above Chris Oladokun. But Minshew is, he was reported that if he were to get re-signed, he should be good to go by OTAs, which is pretty good, so long as rehab on his knee goes well. But, all in all, that is an area where Kansas City might have to consider, well, the 2026 NFL draft is coming up. It might be good to get a younger quarterback in just to kind of add to the depth perception in the room. Obviously, there are bigger needs for Kansas City than adding at the quarterback position. I can think of 2 off the top of my head in the offensive line and a running back, as well as adding a few pieces to this defense. But still, these are thoughts that had to be had. And I would like to know your thoughts. Do you think that Gardner Minshew should return to the Kansas City Chiefs, even though he got hurt and his trajectory could be down, but he does have that veteran leadership that kind of adds a little bit to his flavor? Or does Chris Oladokun come back as the QB2, learning a little bit more? It really depends on how the rest of the season goes, but I would love to know your thoughts. As always, be sure you follow us over at KC Chiefs on SI, both on X and Facebook. Everything gets posted there. And as always, folks, be kind to one another. I'll see you tomorrow.